Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 32 of Big Brother Season 24's overnight feed recaps. And welcome to Cliff Notes. I hope y'all are having a fantastic Sunday. We had a lot of things take place yesterday afternoon and into the evening. A lot of conversations, lots of planning going forward. So we need to get right into it. First of all, as a bit of a refresher, remember that Michael is HOH this week. He put up on the block nomination on Friday, the Bestie Festy trio of Monty, Joseph, and Michael. But the intent really at that point in time was to go ahead and send backdoor Daniel, send him out the door. We'll see if that's still the case or not. So those three on the block. More importantly, we had yesterday the veto competition. Yeah, the veto competition was held. They had a random drawing to see who the last group would be playing in the veto. Turns out it was Turner and Jasmine. Yeah, so they were picked to play up alongside Brittany and Michael, and then Joseph, Monty, and Terrence. So those were our veto players. Bad news to Daniel and Kyle, especially Daniel, who really was wanting to be able to play in veto, perhaps save himself. His chip didn't get drawn, so we've got Jasmine and Turner instead. Yeah, Jasmine with hurt ankle. We'll see how she does this particular veto competition, because we find out that yesterday's veto competition was the iconic OTEV. Yeah, a little earlier than some seasons, but they played OTEV. They had 7 people playing, so I guess they had an extra round and everything else. But they had OTEV happening yesterday. So happy I got to play OTEV during my season. Such an iconic competition. So we had OTEV. Now, apparently, every year OTEV is a different creature. During my season, he was a pigeon. This season, OTEV was a roach. And apparently all the house guests dressed up as roaches as well. Did the producers not just completely miss an opportunity to change it up last minute and have OTEV the Muffin Man? That would have been pretty good, right? Yeah, but they didn't do it. It's OTEV the Roach, I guess. Just like always, we did not get to see the veto competition. We'll see it on Wednesday night. I'm looking forward to it. For all kinds of reasons, I'm looking forward to watching it. So, not to bury the lead, we had the veto competition. The winner of the veto is Michael. Yeah, Michael wins again. Michael is now HOH and veto holder. He's the first one this season who has held both titles at the same time. Michael has won 4 out of 5 veto competitions. The only reason he didn't win that 5th is because he wasn't playing it. He's got a perfect record when he's playing veto competitions. I gotta say, that's a huge target that he's putting on his back. Now, I know he mentioned later that when, I can't remember who it was, one of the guys in the trio were probably going to win if it wasn't for Michael. So I guess it was him versus someone else in the last round. And so he was saying he maybe didn't want to win it, but he went ahead and won it anyway, because otherwise they would have won, pulled themselves off the block. He wouldn't have had any options. He wanted to keep maximum options available. I get it, but I still think the target he's putting on his back is gigantic. At some point, people are going to say, no matter how nice the guy is, he's got to go, because otherwise he's just going to win all the way to the very end. I'm really worried for Michael and what this is doing in this game. Hell of a resume builder. If he makes it to the final 2, at this rate, you got to give it to him, right? But got to make it to the final 2. All right, with that being said, we also had some injuries at OTEV. Yeah, it's a brutal game. We had Brittany who cut her knee. She later received, middle of the night, she received six stitches into it. So she cut her knee. Turner apparently hurt/dislocated his knee. Supposedly they had to pop it back in. Seems like he's okay, but he was injured as well. Now, with all those injuries, on the good side, Jasmine spent the evening taking care of the 2 of them and bringing them food, doing everything since they were injured. Yeah, right. No, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do any of that. In fact, Brittany later complained up in the HOH room to some of the leftovers. She said that after she cut her knee open so bad, she was trying to sit down and Jasmine wouldn't even scoot over, because Jasmine said that she had to keep her ankle propped up while she was watching the competition. So, yeah, we got a few more walking wounded. But Brittany also said later that even with the stitches and everything else, not going to stop her from doing any competitions at all. She's good to go. She'll do what she has to do. I don't think we'll see Brittany hobbling around and asking people. There you go. So we got that. Now, on to the feeds themselves. And again, we had a lot of conversations last night. I'll try to summarize them as best I can. A lot of it just relies on or is all about who should the noms be, the veto be used, If so, who's going up? If not, then what should happen? And a lot of people throwing out different opinions. But it really is starting to come down to two different groups: the leftovers and the leftovers of the leftovers, or the people who are left over that aren't in the leftovers. Two different groups. All right. First of all, we've got Kyle and Daniel talking. They're talking about how to avoid Michael using the veto and putting them up as renominations. Now, originally, Daniel was a target. Kyle wasn't worried at all about it. I was getting a little bit more nervous, not really knowing exactly how this game's going, and a little bit worried that things could happen. He's seen a lot of pawns going out the door already. So Kyle's more than happy to work with Daniel, figure out a way to keep both of them off the block this week. So they're talking a little bit about that. Eventually, Daniel does go upstairs, talks to Michael in the HOH room. He's saying, first of all, he would never put Michael and Brittany up. And I think a better argument for him really to be making at this point in time is he's saying, look, I'm the biggest social target in the house. As long as I'm in here, everyone's looking at me, Michael. They're not looking at you or Brittany. They're going to go for me. I'm going to be the easy target going forward. So if you get rid of me, then who knows what happens next week. But if you hold on to me, they're going to come after me. You should be golden. I don't know if it's going to work, but I think that's a decent argument. It's probably about the only argument he's got going right now. All right, we do eventually then have Jasmine. Lots of conversations with Michael, which you expect. Jasmine comes up and talks to Michael and Brittany. Brittany's there for most of them as well. So Jasmine's talking to Michael and Brittany. She's saying, first of all, look, it's not fair that people are painting a target on my back. I haven't done anything, and yet I keep getting targeted, it seems like. It's just not fair. Lots of things not fair in the Big Brother house. But she thinks that Daniel is always going to be a target. She's pushing the same thing that Daniel said. She said, Daniel's always going to be a target. And Michael, if you really want to make a big move in this game, I'm feeling like maybe you could keep the nominations the same and, I don't know, send out Monty instead. So that's the theme of the evening from that side. Keep the noms the same, send Monty out the door. The leftovers, Michael and at the end of the evening say, everyone's coming to us with the exact same suggestions, stories. To think that they didn't all get together and come up with this before they come up here is silly. They've worked it out. This is what they want to convince me to do. So Jasmine's saying, keep the noms the same, vote out Monty instead. Well, now, first of all, Monty or Michael doesn't actually vote. So he doesn't have any say in voting. He only has a say in who ends up on the block. And at this point in time, my real question is, if he did keep the nominations the same, how certain is he or anyone else that it would be Monty that went out the door as opposed to Terrence? Monty's in this leftover group. As long as they stay tight with each other, Terrence is probably a much more likely target. But Jasmine and the rest of the house guests don't necessarily see it that way because they're really pushing for Monty. She also says that she and Alyssa and Daniel and Indy, they're all going to vote out Monty. That's 4 votes right there, and they could get Kyle probably and a few others. So they're really feeling like they could get Monty out the door. If Michael's just willing to make a big move. I'm not too worried about Michael's resume right now with the wins and everything he's got. I'm not sure he needs to do big moves. I think at this point in time, it's much more important to protect your position, especially since he can't compete for HOH next week. And since his ride or die is Bestie Festy, just got through cutting her knee open and may not be 100% next week either. All right, we've got Michael and Brittany talking. They're realizing after Jasmine left that there's this new potential alliance that is formed from the other side, the non-leftovers. And they're talking about it being Jasmine, Indy, Alyssa, Daniel, and I think they're throwing in Terrence as a 5th one. Wasn't real certain when I listened to the conversation, but again, Jasmine, Indy, Alyssa, Daniel, and Terrence on that side, leftovers on this side. And they're questioning, Michael and Brittany are saying, why should we join that group over there when there's already 5 of them? We know that we would be number 6 and 7. We know that as soon as they had the opportunity, they would cut us loose. There's no love lost. They can say what they want this week, but we know they don't have anything special for us. So why would we join a group where we know we're at the bottom of the totem pole when we can just stick with who we've got? So that's the flaw in the plan that you're seeing from the other side. They are amazed that Jasmine was so open when she came up to talk to them. She didn't hem-haw around, try to get them to commit one way or the other. She pretty much just said, yeah, join us. Let's get Monty out. You'll be good to go. She's really putting all her cards on the table at this point in time. All right, we've got Terrence now coming up to the HOH room to talk to Michael. Terrence is also throwing out Monty's name. He's which has surprised me a little bit. I mean, Terrence is in a trio with Monty and Joseph, and he talked for a while about, hey, we'll watch out for each other and all that. But Terrence is really seeming like he's throwing in with Daniel and the other side at this point. So he's talking to Michael about also trying to get Monty out the door. Terrence is saying, look, I'm comfortable about staying on the block because everyone is rallying against Monty. I know I may have to if Monty goes home, it means I have to stay on the block this week, but I'm okay. Michael, if that's what you want to do, don't worry about it. I'm happy to stay on the block. That is a very dangerous position for Terrence to be in because, again, he's got this other side who's going to be realizing that he's not with them. And why would they vote someone out from within their group as opposed to someone who's outside their group? I think Terrence is making way too many assumptions about loyalties right now. You've got to be careful. I'm getting really worried for Terrence at this point. The only thing saving Terrence right now is he's probably not considered the biggest threat in the house, and we'll mention that, talk about that in a second. All right, we've got Michael and Brittany are letting Turner know that the other side is wanting Monty out. They're trying to fill in all the rest of the leftovers. Brittany is saying, look, this is our chance to get out probably the strongest person on the other side. From a competition standpoint, Daniel probably has more ability to win comps, especially the physical ones, things like that, than anyone else over on that side. Why would we not take the chance to get someone out at this point in time that's probably the biggest competition on the other side? Michael is saying the other thing too. He's saying, I'll kind of go along with them, see what kind of information they give me and everything else. He said, but at the end of the day, I could probably change the nominations, and I've got a good excuse to do it. And he says, last week when Monty was HOH, I promised that I would not vote him out if he would keep me safe. So now I can come back and say, look, I made a promise last week to Monty. As much as I'd love to get him out the door, I'm not going to do it because of the promise I made. So he feels like he's got an excuse that he can sell to the other side about, even if it's this fantastic move, why he's not going to do it. All right, we've got Taylor joining Brittany and Michael and Turner up in the HOH room. She's confirming what they'd already heard from Terrence himself, that Terrence wants Monty out. Taylor's saying she's a little disappointed in Terrence because it's obvious that he has really turned on her and Monty, and she just wasn't expecting that. So she's a little disappointed in that. Michael is saying that if Terrence was just a bigger threat, if he was a big threat to this house, that maybe they would keep the nominations the same, send Terrence out the door, let the pawn become the actual evictee instead for another week. He said, yeah, I'd love to do it. Let Terrence sit on the block if he wants. He said, but he's just not a big enough threat. Daniel's a bigger threat. Even though Terrence is screwing up offering it, I think we still need to go after Daniel at this point. All right, we've got Kyle joining the HOH group. He's talking about downstairs that Jasmine and also Daniel, to a large degree, are really hyped up about this new plan to get Monty out, that they think it's going to work, and they're all just getting very excited about it. I saw Jasmine and Alyssa and Indy just overjoyed at the fact that maybe they can get Monty out this week. Then they'll turn around and flip back and get Daniel out next week, so they're all protected, and they feel like people go after each other instead of them. They got it figured all out. At one point, I think Jasmine told Indy, said, get ready for your $750,000. I hope you're ready for it. Slow your horses down just a little bit. It's not going to be that easy. But I'll say, yeah, they're pretty excited about it downstairs. Michael is also talking about, he's wondering what Alyssa's going to suggest, because Alyssa isn't part of the leftovers, but they have talked about maybe bringing her in or working closer with her. So he's really curious to see where she is. Is she on board with this plan? Is she just playing along? What's going on with Alyssa? Everyone comparing notes that they really have decided or determined that Jasmine is the leader of the other side, and that Daniel is really their biggest competition hope. So they're kind of figuring out the pecking order over there. Kyle is saying that he'll act like Michael is really going to consider this. He's going to pass it on to everyone downstairs just to see how Alyssa responds. All right, we've got Joseph is now with the group. We keep building up folks here and there. Kyle saying that Jasmine said with Monty gone that Joseph would be a free agent and could be easily manipulated by Jasmine and the girls. So they're letting Joseph know what they think about that. The girls have said, we're not voting out Joseph. Indy and Jasmine both said that. So they're really tight with Joseph, but they're saying, yeah, if Monty, if you're gone, they think they've got you. They got you wrapped around their little finger. Joseph is complaining about Terrence and the fact that he was acting so close to Monty and Joseph, and now apparently he's abandoned them, gone to the other side. All right, we got Joseph and Michael. Everyone else leaves. Joseph and Michael are upstairs by themselves. They're laughing about how much the other side's going to be scrambling once the veto is used, and they realize that their plan didn't work, and that Daniel and Kyle are on the block. They're worried about how scary a 5-4 vote could be in that situation, the possibility of losing Kyle and all of that. But I think it's Michael who says, yeah, but on the other hand, it's really going to it's going to say a lot about who's with us, who's without. It's going to, for example, Alyssa, it's really going to be interesting to see how that vote goes and where her vote lies. So there's going to be a lot of information from a 5-4 vote, even if they maybe would rather see a little bit larger, more unanimous than that. All right, we've got Indy, comes upstairs, visits with Michael. She's a little, she's not giving out as much information as Jasmine was. She's saying, look, I'm fine with Daniel going. If you want to send Daniel out the door, I support you in whatever you do, Michael. If you want Daniel to go, I'm fine with that. She says, I'm just worried more about what happens next week. Once Daniel's gone, I just want to do what I can to make sure that the girls, myself and Jasmine and Alyssa, that we're okay. That's my main concern right now. Michael tells her that he kind of doesn't want Daniel to go either, but he's just trying to get a feel for the house. So he's prodding her for information, but he didn't really get a lot out of it. All right, we've got Alyssa finally paying her visit to Michael. Which way's Alyssa going to go? Well, she does mention, she says, look, if Daniel goes this week, there's no target next week, and you can't play for HOH. You know, it seems like Michael's saying this to Alyssa, saying I'm a little bit worried, about how that's going to go, and kind of playing like maybe he's looking at holding on to Daniel. Alyssa is saying, well, Monty did want me out last week. He did talk about keeping the noms the same and sending me out the door. I heard that. And so, based on that, I'm not sure that I got a whole lot of love left for Monty and all that. Kind of hint. She doesn't say vote out Monty, but she certainly is making the suggestion. She's saying that Monty also has Joseph and Terrence already, that they're a tight group. She's thinking that maybe Daniel would be a little bit better for jury. They talk a little bit about bitter jurors and everything. And she says, yeah, I think Daniel would probably be good on the jury. Michael at one point, I think, says something like, or no, it's all your Kyle. I will cover it later. Get ahead of myself. So anyway, so she, without coming right out and saying it, is certainly throwing out a lot of arguments for maybe keeping noms the same and going for Monty also. Alyssa also mentioned, I thought this was interesting. I think Michael at one point says, I did promise Monty that I wouldn't vote him out. He says, well, look, if you keep the noms the same and Monty gets voted out, you've kept your promise because you don't vote. So you can say, hey, I didn't vote you out just because everyone else did. There's always a loophole, right? Michael finally says, look, here's the thing, Alyssa. My options are either leave the noms the same or to vote out Kyle and Daniel. He doesn't want to send Jasmine out on the week that I guess her dad's birthday is this week, celebration of it. So he doesn't want to put her and turn her on the block. He's not going to put the three girls on the block. So he's saying, it's either Kyle and Daniel or keep the nominations the same. All right, after that, we've got Kyle coming in talking to Michael. Michael saying, look, it makes sense that Alyssa would want Monty gone. He kind of did talk about sending her out last week. So, that is what it is. And he says, but on the other hand, Indy, trying to figure out what she's saying. She didn't really give me that much. I didn't hear anything. Kyle is worried that Jasmine will want Kyle gone over Daniel if they do change the nominations. He's a little bit worried about Jasmine's influence and wanting Kyle gone. But Alyssa would protect Kyle, right? Alyssa would step in if Jasmine did that and try to protect Kyle. You would think, right? Well, maybe we'll find out. We'll see. All right, we got Brittany coming in. She's worried about next week since her knee is hurt. She knows that competitions may be a little tough. She said she's going to give it her all, and I'm sure she will. She's worried about the fact that she may be a little less 100% and Michael can't compete as well. So certainly it's something they've got to think about. We started a little bit about that the night before, where Michael is a little bit worried that if Daniel does go home this week, no big house target the following week. He's bouncing a couple of different things when he talks about that. Kyle is saying that he is, for just entirely personal reasons, he'd probably like to see Daniel go home this week, just because he just soon not have to spend a lot of time in the jury house with Daniel. Now, remember, Kyle was talking earlier Daniel about all kinds of ways to maybe try to avoid having the two of them on the block. Now he's telling Michael, saying, yeah, not necessarily. I'm worried about being up there, but I wouldn't mind seeing Daniel head out. He's certainly torn. We had the backyard open up, I don't know, a little bit after midnight. House guests went out there and enjoyed their time outdoors again. We've got Taylor and Monty in the bathroom. Taylor's filling Monty. Apparently, Monty had a couple of hours worth of diary room session. So we may see a lot of diary room comments from Monty coming up. A couple hours in there. So Taylor's filling Monty in on everything that happened. The other side trying to keep the nominations the same. Taylor's also saying that next week, he's a little bit worried because next week, if she's to win HOH, she really feels like her only options for nominations would be Terrence or Indy to put up. I think she doesn't want to go after the leftovers, and so she has limited options. Now, after hearing her talk a little bit earlier about how she's a little disappointed in Terrence and the fact that he turned on her, if Taylor won HOH, it may be bad news for Terrence, but we'll find out. Now we've got Kyle and Monty talking. Kyle's also telling Monty about again, informing Monty about the plan to keep the noms the same. He's worried what will happen if he and Daniel are both on the block together. He doesn't see it nearly as certain as some other people. But Monty's telling him, saying, look, if the noms are kept the same, it'd be a 4-4 vote, and Michael's going to break the tie. So, we should be good on mine. And if you're up there with Daniel, we got your back. You're good. Either way, we should be okay this week. We've got Joseph and Indy talking to the cameras. I think they're in the Jetsons' bedroom, if I recall. No game talk, just shouting at the family and just acting silly and everything else. Indy and Joseph are pretty tight with each other. Now, there's been little rumors here and there about Joseph and Taylor also being a little bit tight. We'll see which way Joseph goes. Everyone likes Joseph. We've got Joseph and Monty and Turner in the HOH room. Joseph is saying, look, I think maybe Alyssa or maybe Daniel this week and Alyssa next week. Maybe that's our best way to go. So from the pound standpoint, minus Kyle. I'm not sure what Kyle thinks about that, but the other three members of the pound are saying, yeah, let's just go with Daniel. Get us off the block, put Daniel up, and then we'll get Alyssa out next week, and we should go. We've got Michael and Turner and Monty talking at this point. So Joseph left. I think he did the diary room. Michael came back into his HOH room. They're just rehashing the conversations that took place throughout the evening. Monty does mention, though, at one point, he says, look, the other side thinks that Kyle's a floater. They're giving him a lot of information because they think he's kind of a free agent they may be able to get a hold of. He's saying, we're really lucky Kyle's still part of our group, and it's going to influence, both give the information to us, but also be that extra vote that we may really need this week. And that's the problem with the other side. They don't realize that they don't have Kyle. Maybe it's because they know that Kyle and Alyssa are like this, and they think Alyssa can rope them in, but they're probably counting on Kyle's vote when that's probably a bad assumption to be made. All right. Finally, Michael's got the HOH room to himself. Right before he shuts down, he talks to the camera a little bit, as he tends to do. He says, here's my ideal final three. Final four. Final five. So Michael's final five ideal situation would be himself, Brittany, Indy, Jasmine, and Taylor. That's an interesting combination, isn't it? It's not based on, it's based on his strategy. It's based on who he thinks he could beat in those last few competitions to make it to final two. He figures that of himself and those four women, that the only person that he thinks may be able to beat him in final two would be Taylor. He thinks he could beat everyone else in a final two. He feels like from a competition standpoint, he would stand a very good chance of getting them out. So those are his ideal final five. Final four that would be with him as a final five. He talks about the other house guests, that he likes Kyle, he likes Monty, he likes Turner, all these guys that he would hate to send them out the door. They're nice guys and everything, but he would just be worried from a competition standpoint. So Michael's thinking ahead. He's thinking way ahead. You aren't competing in HOH next week, so just think about the next week or two. Think about final 3, 4, 5 a little bit later. But I get it. You like to dream, especially when you're sitting up there in that big old luxurious HOH room. And there you have it, guys. House guests were in bed by 4 o'clock or so, I think, Big Brother time. So they call it it's an early night for those guys, not so much for me. But there you have it, guys. So right now, the plan, I believe, is still to keep changing the nominations up. put Daniel and Kyle on the block, send Daniel out the door. I think that's the way it's going to work. I don't think they'll flip and send Kyle out unless someone starts throwing out some secrets. There are a lot of people spilling a lot of news in the last few days, and Kyle certainly has given out some of his own information that could certainly make some people over in the leftovers upset as well. So if the right people say the right things, things could change. But at least for right now, the plan is to change the noms and send Daniel out the door. We'll find out tomorrow what happens overnight. But until then, guys, y'all have a fantastic rest of your Sunday. I'll be back tomorrow morning to give you all the overnight details. We got an episode tonight. We'll see the nominations take place as well. Until then, guys, I'll see you tomorrow morning. SKD 143. Cheers, my friend.